How do I log into Grok?
Allison,
Oh,
we're
sorry.
live. Hello,
Oh,
everybody, and welcome
sorry.
to Honey Badger Radio.
I
My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 178. How can we force our message on the vulnerable? A government case study.
yeah,
Sorry, Allison, you just started talking as I switched scenes. So,
my apologies. So essentially what this is a couple days ago, actually I think it was yesterday. Rather, it might have been, it doesn't matter. Um, I was as usual, discussing the sexual assault statistics that people don't want to talk about, which is, of course, male or female on male sexual assault. And this particular organization, the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, which sort of sounds like it's government based, but apparently, according to its disclaimer, the content on this website is provided for informational purposes only, while some of the materials and blah, blah, blah is this maybe supported in part by federal grants. The views, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed are solely those of authors that do not necessarily yada, yada, yada. So I don't think this is actually a government organization, although it is sort of portraying itself using the acronyms that are associated with a lot of the criminal and general population surveys of these issues. So,
yeah,
I originally thought, because they kept getting cited by Grok, and I was like, well, is this a study? Like, is this a because you have the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey that's put on by the CDC, which is an actual study. And I was like, well, is this a study? And I find out, no, it's just a clearinghouse for data. But as I delved deeper into it, because I was actually having a conversation with Grok, and the conversation I was having was, how, if feminism says it's about equality but doesn't measure the men's side, how can it say it's about equality? Right. And I was having this conversation. I was getting Grok to estimate how much effort feminism puts into measuring the male side of the equation. Because if you're going to say that, X or Y or X is always greater, women's oppression is always greater than men's, then you sort of have to measure men's side. And you honestly, if you're going to be a genuine and set of organizations with integrity, you should probably measure both sides with equal amount of rigor and be very transparent about how you are determining, how you're weighting each men's issues versus a woman's issues, etc. So I asked Grok, how much effort does feminism put into understanding and recognizing men's issues? And it came back with an astounding number of 10 to 20%. And I was looking at this and I was saying, is this, I don't think that the 20% of feminist funding goes to analyzing men's issues. And I dug deeper in with Grok, and I found out that it had lumped in initiatives for men to take responsibility for violence against women as a men's issue. And I pointed out, please don't lump in initiatives to get men to take responsibility for being perpetrators with initiatives that help men when they're victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, etc. And then it went back through and it gave me like 5%. And I'm like looking at this and I'm like, what is this 5%? And I drilled down more into this and I found this set of, I guess, procedures or expectations. It's called the SADI, which is the SADI. Do you have the there's a little bit of information on the Working with Male Survivors of Sexual Violence
yeah.
page, and we can go through that.
The Sexual
But
Assault Demonstration Initiative. That's SADI. So what?
yes,
So what?
okay,
What do you want me to display?
okay, let's go through the Working with Male Survivors of Sexual Violence. This is one of the 5% that Grok said that of feminist funding that is devoted to male survivors. So I wanted to look through it because it's really interesting, and I think it's going to be enlightening to you guys what they're actually doing with,
Yeah,
and it's not just male sexual assault survivors. It is all sexual assault survivors, but it's particularly egregious when it comes to male sexual assault survivors. So let's just take a look. And incidentally, I ground Grok down further by to about, I think, 2%. And then I asked Grok, okay, so this 2% is just feminist initiatives, which means that they are helping male survivors in the context of what they call a gendered narrative. So, in other words, the priority isn't helping men with these problems. The priority is making sure that these problems are seen within a gendered context. So we all know what the gendered context is. Men have to take unique responsibility for sexual violence and domestic assault because feminists theorize or conjecture or allege that men use these things to uphold patriarchy. It's going to be extremely difficult to hold on to that ideological framework if we recognize that women are equally likely to be sexually violent and engage in domestic violence. Because, how can patriarchy maintain its grip over women if women are engaging in the very actions that give patriarchy its grip towards men? So anyway, this is their framework, and I got Grok down to about 2%, which was, as we all know, bullshit. But, at least I can point out that spending 2% to measure one side, when you're trying to declare that the other side is greater, is dishonest. And then I finally got Grok to admit that feminism is a cult. Okay. Mary Strauss.
Okay. So what do you want?
Again. All right.
So what are we looking at? What am I doing? Just reading this?
Yeah, sure. Let's see what they have to say about male survivors of sexual violence. The National Sexual Violence Resource Center.
Okay, so working with male survivors of sexual violence. The tools in this project will help you understand how male socialization, so the way men are socialized, impacts the stigma and reaction to sexual violence. They will help you consider how to reach and engage men who need healing from sexual violence. They will help you map out potential partnerships in your service area. Finally, they will give you guidance on creating sexual assault services that meet the needs of male survivors.
Okay, that's what they say in their first paragraph.
Sure.
But let's go in and just keep going down, because these are their various initiatives. Let's keep going down, because then we get into the meat
the
of the
SADI
matter.
thing.
Yeah.
And also, for the record, I looked it up, and the National Sexual Violence Resource Center is not a government entity. It's a nonprofit organization, but it's a division of another organization called Respect Together that was founded in the year 2000 with initial funding from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention under the Violence Against Women Act. So the Violence Against Women Act is kind of like at the bottom layer of this. So you could say that if it turns out that this is going to be just about women, I think it kind of comes like that's like the wellspring, right, of this. So just telling you guys like where the connections are at, right? So once again, that's the National Sexual Violence Resource Center is a nonprofit that got founded in 2000 with initial funding from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention under the Violence Against Women Act. And it was part of a thing called Respect Together. All right.
Respect one way.
Yeah, respect one way, right? Respect together.
So essentially what this is well, you know what? Let's just let it speak for itself. Continue,
Sure.
Brian.
So, lessons from the Sexual Assault Demonstration Initiative on Male Survivors. Programs that participated in the Sexual Assault Demonstration Initiative, SADI, assessed how effective they were at serving various groups of survivors, including men and boys. When programs ranked groups in terms of how well staff thought they were serving them, men and boys regularly ranked at the bottom of all groups. The SADI helped programs learn that sexual assault specific services need to integrate trauma-informed and anti-oppression frameworks, okay, that address the unique and multifaceted needs of many different survivors, including male survivors who had not been reached previously by their services, and to prioritize skills such as active listening, empathy, building rapport, empowerment, and collaboration. It's a lot of commie words. As you dive into exploring how to serve male survivors, your program must first have a deep organizational identity as a sexual assault center / provider for survivors.
So they're targeting.
Huh?
They're basically targeting organizations that have helped survivors for a while. Like let's
Yeah.
let's say this what this is. This is a top-down initiative to target these organizations for pushing their propaganda, their intersectionality caste system, in which men are the universal scapegoat. They are the untouchables. They are the bottom caste. And you think that I'm exaggerating. We'll go into what the SADI the SADI
Should I
dog.
move it? 'Cause this is just sort of like saying this is
Yeah.
what you need, what not sure where to start. Okay, so how about this part? Why men?
Yeah, sure. Let's go for why men.
What a question to ask. Why men?
I'm under attack by the beast. Okay, what?
Jojo is just sleeping.
I know.
He is on camera.
He is the goodest of
Well, he's
good
not
boys.
sleeping. He's meditating.
Okay.
Here. He's charging his chi. So why men? In this project, we're focusing on improving services for male survivors of sexual violence. Well, at least we acknowledge them. A complicated topic in the context of the women's movement. Michelle Dixon Wall. Why even bring that up? Why even say that?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, like you can just. We're focusing on improving services for male survivors of sexual violence. End of sentence. Yes. But then they have to add a complicated topic in the context of the women's movement.
Because it always has to take place within that context.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be a gendered narrative? Like, why does there have to be a gendered narrative around a sexual assault? Why is that necessary? Why is that obligatory? Why has nobody ever said, maybe there isn't, and actually tested for that? Because that would be the null hypothesis for the feminist assertion that sexual assault is gendered. But nobody tests for that because scientific rigor and integrity are completely absent in these programs. Everything is ideological possession and dogma. Okay.
Yep. All right. Michelle Dixon Wall laid out some thinking about how to contextualize the need to talk about men's access to services at sexual assault centers in the article.
Contextualize?
Yeah, to contextualize. We need to let's prepare our minds for this concept that's so crazy and wild and out there, like men and boys being the victims of sexual violence. Like, I mean, who knows, right? Like, it's wild. It's just wild and random.
This is the stuff that your taxpayers are going to, tax dollars are going to, pushing ideological viewpoints on survivors of sexual assault. You'd think that people would be like, these people, okay, you know what? Let's just continue. I'm going to not. Right. I've read ahead. I have spoilers, guys.
Yeah. Okay. There was no period after article, but I'm pretty sure that's the end of a sentence. Let's unpack that. Men's access to violence against women's services. Maybe there's a summary here, but I'll open this in a new tab if we need to look at it. Dixon Wall argues that while shining a spotlight on the needs of male survivors, we can keep a gendered framework of sexual violence, but also make it more nuanced. Rigid gender expectations can hurt any of us in different ways, including men who learn to keep harm bottled up inside and not seek help. Never heard that before. The lessons we've learned from the herstory of the what? Did they literally write that? The lessons we've learned from the herstory of the anti-sexual assault movement.
This is quoted as a credible freaking resource for male victims of sexual assault. Like, this is considered credible. None of this is credible. These people do not put the healing of male victims of sexual assault before their ideological focus. And also the individuals involved in these organizations, that they talk to YouTube about its algorithm and they deboost content like ours that calls them out for their circular reasoning, like, and their lack of scientific integrity. And also the fact that, when you go into a program that is supposed to be about a survivor of a traumatic event, overcoming that trauma, and start pushing your rhetoric into it, that is unethical. There's no reason to offer these, to demand that these services be within a context, a gendered context, or her story, or feminism. But of course, feminism has to get in there.
It's history of women.
Okay, and incidentally, they talk about, oh, it's stigmatized for men to think of themselves as sex. So let us make this a gendered issue. Let us continue to focus on this as something that happens to women, and when it happens to men, it's because patriarchy is backfiring. Therefore, they sort of did it in themselves. To quote, what is his name? The great erotica writer, Chris Tingle. When men get raped, or when men get raped, it is them pounding their asses with their own asses.
Yep. Pounding the ass with his own ass.
Yes. That is the feminist framework for male rape victims. And now we've just gotten completely deboosted because I used the R word, which is worse than any other word. All right. Let's keep going.
So the lessons we've learned from the history of the anti-sexual assault movements can be applied with nuance to people of all genders impacted by sexual violence. Notice, when they say all genders, they're basically using everything they can to make men the smallest possible subset of that. That's the purpose of this multi-gendered thing. It's about excluding men. The same limiting, rigid gender roles that normalize violence against women and non-binary people keep men from seeking services.
So because of men's violence against women and non-binaries, they don't seek services because the appropriate victims of violence are women and non-binary. So in order to seek services, these patriarchal male sexual assault survivors would have to conceive of themselves as being subject to the very violence that they're supposed to inflict as patriarchal overlords. Do they say this to actual male sexual assault survivors? They're like, the reason
wonder why they don't come forward.
The real reason why you experience trauma is because you are being subjected to a powerlessness in your patriarchal overlord mindset. And you don't like it because it makes you like women and non-binaries. Do you get that, sir? You think that you are traumatized by your forced sexual incident, but what you're really traumatized by is the fact that you've had a window into the experience of women and non-binaries. Do they say that to these guys? Like, is that why? Okay, yeah, I'm going to stop getting irate. You'll notice that they did say that these programs, the SADI program, is ranked, men rank it the lowest, essentially. It also causes, when you read the information about it, it's also caused counselors to quit programs as well, which is insane. So this program, which is, for whatever reason, they're targeting male sexual assault survivors with it. Male sexual assault survivors say they don't like it. And counselors who apparently work with male sexual assault survivors, or just assault survivors in general, have quit because of this program. And and again, this is top down. This is feminist organizations at the very top telling people who are trying to work with vulnerable individuals dealing with trauma what they need to say and do in order to push feminism. If you are not sick to your stomach by this, you're not a human being. Well, I shouldn't say that. You would just be completely indifferent, fine, whatever. But this is sickening. This is a sickening abuse of vulnerable people who come to an organization to try to get help, and instead they get propaganda shoved up every orifice. And a re-traumatizing freaking everywhere feminism goes, it makes everything worse when it comes to survivors of these issues. Okay, let's keep going.
Yep.
I could just
all right.
forever.
Okay. So let's see. I just want to make sure I know where I left off. Men can play an important role in interrupting sexual harassment. What? Okay. Let me start. Let's start over. We know that sexual violence impacts people of all genders and backgrounds. There are men who commit acts of sexual violence. Men can play an important role in interrupting sexual harassment and inappropriate behaviors. And in addition to these important truths, it is also vital that we recognize that men experience sexual violence and need healing.
From other men, mostly. That's what they can recognize.
Yeah, like Joe Rogan, right? That's the only rape that he acknowledges is when it's like prison rape. And of course that cancels it out too. It's like, well, it's other men, so who cares? Two wrongs equals a who cares. Or just one
Well,
wrong
I
against
just
the wrong kind of person equals a who cares.
this is
So,
in their segment on how to serve male victims of sexual assault. So
yep.
let's just so this SADI program, when it infests an organization that's trying to help sexual assault survivors, it goes in and it says, we know that sexual violence impacts people of all genders and background. There are men who commit acts of sexual violence. Men can play an important role in interrupting sexual harassment. And in it, so how does that inform your therapy sessions with a male sexual assault survivor? Like,
Yep.
are you like, oh, little Timmy, you've been graped by your teacher since you were 11, but can we discuss how you can interrupt sexual harassment of women first? Like, how does this? And I wonder how the manipulation, like the situation where they, Mia is all over me because I'm really up. I'm not. I must be giving off a lot of adrenaline hormones. So she's like,
Yeah.
I need to soothe you and destroy the thing that's upsetting you. Well, unfortunately, you can't, little void cat. You cannot destroy the thing that's upsetting me because it is bullshit, ideologically
Yeah,
possessed
I'm giving her.
bullshit
She wants a
everywhere.
shot. She might be able to.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah. Okay. Maybe you
she's
could.
got
Maybe.
like powers that have yet to be awakened. Probably.
Okay. Well. All right. So this. Okay, let's just keep going.
All right. Men can play an important role in interrupting sexual harassment and inappropriate behaviors. And in addition to these important truths, it's also vital that we recognize that men experience sexual violence and need healing. In this project, we bring a gendered analysis of the impact of sexual violence to the understanding that male survivors have not been served well. We invite you to recognize the complicated identity of male survivor. Complicated, guys. It's complicated, guys.
It's complicated
You can't
because
just call it what it is. No.
it's
That's a little too
inconsistent.
dangerous for our brand. So,
It's
um,
inconsistent with feminist theorizing on these issues, so it's complicated. And we
yeah, it
can't
needs
just
nuance. We got to add a
yeah,
bunch of nuance.
which is
Allow me to
basically
weave.
believing
Huh?
two contradictory things at once. One, that men are as victims of sexual assault, they are underserved by society and they are subject to greater amounts of stigma, which is what all the findings show, right? Men are
Mm-hmm.
underreport. They are not believed when they tell, as children, even as children, if they are sexually assaulted by women. Services alienate them, and obviously obviously the what is it, the National Sexual Violence and Resource Center doesn't think that male sexual assault survivors are alienated enough, so it's promoting this new initiative to essentially deal with sexual assault survivors within the context of feminist ideology, which doesn't can't it feminist ideology is incompatible with recognizing the full extent of male sexual assault by women or the full extent of domestic violence by women. It's incompatible. And they have a huge invested motive in denying it and trying to recontextualize things. So essentially, what they're saying is there are a bunch of foxes debating how chickens who want to remain alive are incompatible with the fox agenda. So how do we
Yep.
square this circle? Slink. Well, something's got to give, and it ain't feminism. How is it that this shit can just continue, and people aren't up in arms over it?
Well, most people aren't aware of it.
Yeah, until a man
Until they have to deal with it. Yes.
until they have to deal with it, and then they are like, well, men just commit suicide because they're weaker than women. And yet what happens to male sexual assault survivors that go to these resources, and they're like, okay, let's talk about how you are sexually violent against women. I mean, not you in particular because you were raped by a woman, but men in general need to take responsibility. Like, this is what men get, is it? This is what men get. It's sick. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. We invite you to recognize the complicated identity of the male survivor, which is impacted by various additional identities and experiences that male survivors hold. We are also anchored in the primacy of trauma-informed care. Every survivor has experienced trauma, and as advocates, we need to know and understand that. How trauma manifests for survivors varies. What survivors are seeking is healing. And as a community-based organization, your job is to provide opportunities for survivors to heal.
Oh, very
In
nice.
28, what?
How very generous. We need to remember
Yeah.
that men are the victims here, as we teach them that they're actually the aggressors. All
In
right.
28, oh, I'm sorry. In 2018, NSVRC convened a roundtable to inform the development and direction of resource content on serving male survivors of sexual assault at rape crisis centers. The 18 participants in the roundtable included representation from sexual assault centers, sexual assault coalitions, national technical assistance providers, and survivors. The needs and priorities from this roundtable are reflected in the resources developed and shared in this project. Should I
Okay, wait,
go
go
through
back up
this?
to who was at the round table.
This is who was at the round table?
18 people, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, 18 participants.
Okay. Yeah, 18 participants.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going.
All right. So this is like the resources, and it's basically like some links. Some of them are not in English.
So essentially, what they've done is they've taken these resources, which are meant to be used by people who talk to and help male survivors of sexual assault, and they have reframed it all in the ideological context of feminism, which is that men use sexual assault as a tool to keep women in control, right? And how do you actually help male victims of sexual assault by women in particular in a framework in which you see men as using sexual assault to keep women under control? That's the question we have before the court. So let's see what they've got. And incidentally, we're going to be covering a bunch of organizations that have been influenced by this. I suggest you avoid them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the resources, we have assessing our capacities assessing our capacity for serving male survivors of sexual violence assessment tool. Sexual assault advocates and rape crisis centers can use this self-assessment tool to reflect on your current work serving men who have had unwanted sexual experiences. The tool offers reflection questions related to individual and organizational capacity to serve male survivors. Should I like open that link?
No, no.
Okay.
I mean, this is a rabbit hole. I'm sure we could find lots of ideologically motivated hatred and thuggish crap that now male sexual assault survivors need to navigate. Let's look at how often are men sexually harassed or assaulted.
Infographic. In this infographic, we provide statistics on the prevalence of sexual violence for men. All right, so I'm sharing that.
Okay.
It's a PDF, so I should open up the PDF, I guess.
Okay.
All right, it's just like one thing. It says, how often are men sexually harassed or assaulted? 43% of men reported experiencing some form of sexual harassment and or assault in their lifetime. Many men do not identify or describe these experiences as rape or sexual violence, and some do not identify as a victim or survivor, while others do. Some men may describe their experiences as unwanted or abusive. The terms men use to describe these experiences may change over time.
This is so far fairly reasonable, although lifetime prevalence of sex, that is a dishonest. Lifetime prevalence of sexual violence undercounts male victims substantially because men are verified through longitudinal studies. They undercount sexual abuse when they're children by like a factor of 4 relative to women. So this is an undercount. Of course, it's not bad. This is not bad. I will give this a not bad. Although I will point out that I asked Grok, what is the likelihood, and I showed Grok all of the studies that I've collated about the rate of sexual victimization of men by women. And I asked Grok, what is the likelihood that feminists, the feminist conjecture that 90% of rapists are men is true in the context of the studies that I've shown you? And Grok came back with 0. There is a 0 probability based on, if you look at the studies, there is a 0 probability that a society in which 90% of the sexual aggressors were men would produce studies that show this kind of prevalence, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no way that 90% of the aggressors, the sexual assault, the sexual violence is done by men. No way. And
No,
in
of
fact,
course.
what we're seeing is that while more like 50% is done by women, by the time you get to convictions, 90% of the rapists are men. Why? Because men, male victims in this patriarchy that apparently uses rape and domestic violence to keep women in line, male victims are discriminated against on every step. Every step, from frontline trauma counselors to police to barristers, like to lawyers, to the legal system, to the justice. Every single step of the way is pushback against male survivors getting justice when their abuser is a woman, right? That's what it shows. That's what it shows. That's what the 90% shows, is just discrimination against male victims. And again, when you look at it that way, doesn't the whole thing about feminists wanting to see this in a gendered context just increase the discrimination against men, the already existing discrimination, which incidentally they put in place as well?
Yeah.
So they are constructing the gendered narrative, and then they say, well, the gendered narrative is why men don't reveal, like they don't talk about it when they're constructing it. We had better attitudes towards male victims of sexual assault 50 years ago. We had more sane attitudes 50 years ago. It's getting worse because feminists are forcing these gendered narratives everywhere. Because, cha-ching, they're money spinners. Okay.
All right. You want me to go back to this? There's how we talk about working with male survivors of sexual assault, harassment, and abuse. I also think that study, that data there, it's possible that that's still skewed even more because, like, they're talking about sexual violence and all that, but like, what's the context? Like, how do we define sexual violence? Does that include female perpetrators, like teachers, or like, I don't know, babysitters, like female authority figures over children? Does that include? Like, I just wonder about that because
we're going to
like
go into.
it's.
Yeah,
Huh?
it does. Does it include? I don't know.
Like, because if you frame it in such a way that, it's something that only men can do, then they're only going to have the incidences of male sexual assault against other males, right? Which is not giving you the full picture, and it's also contributing to the broader narrative of men as perpetrators.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, well, yes, but also I think that the best one to go into is actually the SADI program, which I like to
yeah,
call the sadistic program.
yeah.
It's
All
basically
right.
the first 4 letters of sadistic. So they deserve it. All right. So I did send that through if you click on the link that I sent you, it'll take you to the discussion, which is in resources on our Discord. And incidentally, if you would like to join us so you can see my resources and talk about it, and we can help each other destroy this gigantic shit dome of lies, then go to badgernation.online and take part in the community. But yeah, this is I can also, here we go. This is the SADI report final. Now it's long, so you'll probably want to do something like do a search on oppression, the oppression narrative. But before we get into that, I just want to point out, looking deeper into the SADI stick sexual assault framework, we find oppression theory, including understand theory of tactics of oppression, microaggressions, and privilege, power, and culture. So essentially, they're going in and they're forcing people who are dealing with sexual assault survivors on a trauma-based model. What does that mean? Well, you focus on the person in front of you and getting over their trauma, or helping them overcome their trauma, or develop coping skills to overcome their trauma, right? So it's a person-focused kind of therapy. They're going in and they're making these therapists reframe their work in the context of tactics of oppression, microaggressions, privilege, power, and culture. Now, how does that affect? First of all, that's going to affect male victims, because there's going to be a push towards reframing them in the context of feminist conjecture as the aggressors, right? We don't need to talk about your sexuals. Let's talk about all of the things you might be doing to women, or your femophobia that has led you to regard sexual assault as female. Meanwhile, feminists are saying sexual assault is female, that kind of thing. And the impetus will be to treat female survivors not as individuals going through a trauma, but as victims of a widespread conspiracy against women. So in other words, feminist conjecture as applied to assisting sexual assault survivors is guaranteed secondary trauma, because they're telling men, you're actually the oppressor. And they're telling women, not only have you experienced this negative thing, but this negative thing is evidence of social targeting of you because you're a woman. What do you think that's going to do to people? And this is something that the government funds. It's insane. But yeah, let's okay, so the next one is historical trauma, including exploring privilege.
So should I search this on the report?
I'm just reading from the report right now. You can look into oppression theory. Just look up oppression theory to find what I'm reading right now. Historical trauma, including exploring privilege, practicing interrupting oppressive remarks and courageous conversations.
Oh, here it is.
Why are you doing this to sexual assault survivors? Don't they have enough on their plate? Like, now they have to become foot soldiers for the feminist ideological march through the institutions?
Let me read this again. So oppression theory. So this is like what the victims of sexual assault and sexual violence, this is like the cure, is essentially to turn them into foot soldiers of feminist theory, including oppression theory, including understanding theory and tactics of oppression, microaggressions, and privilege, power, and culture. How will that shake out if you're a man dealing with this? Historical trauma, including exploring privilege, practicing interrupting oppressive remarks, what? And courageous conversations. All right.
How does this inform helping people overcome sexual assault trauma? It doesn't. It's basically just turning these people into ideological foot soldiers, including the people who are supposed to help them. All right. I'm going to open this up and I'll give you look up the term oppression, and we'll look at the instances of oppression in this PDF. That'll probably be fruitful, because that's what I did, just to understand what the hell they were up to.
Right. So first we have anti-racism / oppression stance. Facilitators of the change included openness to learning, openness to change, stability of leadership, empowering leadership, support for staff to mitigate secondary and organizational trauma, and incorporating anti-racism oppression work. By the way, whenever you see sentences that say doing the work in this context, it's commie gobbledygook. Okay, 3, anti-racism oppression approach to serving survivors, which means some survivors get more help than others. That's usually what that means. Racial and ethnic demographics. Yes, male victims of sexual assault that are Black, it has nothing to do with them being men. And it has everything to do with them being Black, because being a man is the least important thing all of a sudden.
Yeah, I just want to get in there. It says working with serving male survivors. So these top-down organizations are telling people who have been serving male survivors in the trauma-based model how to serve male survivors. Do you know why? Because they are trying to pretend Like they know how to serve male survivors, which they don't. They only know how to re-traumatize male survivors by recasting them as oppressors. So, but what they do, and this is tools like tools for radical Alinsky, right? This is
All
Alinsky-esque
Linsky's rules for radicals.
yeah, these are Linsky-esque tactics. What they're doing is they're accusing these organizations of not serving male survivors properly, right? Because then they can slip in how to basically serve them even worse. To slip in this framework. Oh, you're not serving male survivors properly because male survivors need to be served within a nuanced feminist context. And their identities are complex within the feminist context. And in order to serve a survivor, a male survivor of sexual assault, in particular of a woman, you need to make his identity as a sexual assault survivor compatible with the feminist framework. And that is serving him, which you aren't doing now.
Yeah.
It's so fucking disreputable. It's just insane. And it drives me nuts that these podcasts that we do on this incredibly important topic get no traction. I don't know if you guys are like, I don't want to listen to this, or if YouTube's like, nope, nobody's going to listen to this. But nobody, like, this is the heart of it. Once men lose the narrative around their sexuality, that's it. You're done. You're cooked. Feminism's going to bulldoze over your entire society until it destroys it. And then it'll wander off and say, we didn't do that. How did that happen? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Let's keep going.
Immigration. So again, immigration, oppression, culturally specific and contextually relevant planning. So all of this is intersectionality. Like if you just look at oppression, every time it comes up, it's in an intersectional context. Yes. And the thing about intersectionality is that that basically always puts men at the bottom. Yep. No matter what yep. their other characteristics are that would normally put them a little higher up compared to, like, you know, straight, cisgendered, middle class, or wealthy, affluent, Western white men that have, like, you know, I guess they're actually like citizens of the country they're in. Those guys are at the very, very bottom, but men in general are the ones being denied this, and all the other identities or markers or characteristics are just used to make this appear as though it's trying to, like, correct some historical wrongs, but ultimately it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't even serve the people who are supposedly higher up, because it's not framed in that way that it's meant to help them. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's.
Can you guys hit the like button for us? That'll be helpful.
Yeah, hit the like button, please. Like, this stuff is really important. I know nobody likes talking about it. Absolutely nobody likes talking about it. I understand that, because, like, when I look at this stuff, I'm like, just like, what the fuck are you doing? And you're doing it to male victims of sexual assault, of all people, like the most marginalized people on the fucking planet, and you're doing this to them. Oh, take responsibility for how the system empowers you as a man and a male victim of sexual assault. Like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? What is this rank insanity? This absolute careless disregard for your fellow human. Like, oh, what am I talking about? Money. All right.
Yeah.
So, but what I wanted to point out, all right? It's okay, Void Cat. I'm fine. Right? I know. If it were up to you, the world would be a better place, because everything that angers me would disappear into the void. Maybe that wouldn't make the world a better place.
Be swallowed by the cryptid's eyes.
Yeah, the cryptid's eyes. Oh, this nonsense would be, at least.
All right.
Okay.
So, yeah. Should I go through the rest of oppression here?
I was going to talk about intersectionality. Yes, intersectionality is essentially removing victimhood from men. That's it. That's all it does. And it puts them in the cast of always being seen in terms of what they do for others rather than what is done to them. That's what intersectionality does. Turns them into a scapegoat, turns them to blame. And it also means that they are the most powerful or perceived to be the most powerful actors in any particular system, which some men really like. They like that, which is why they hate me talking about this stuff. I've met guys like that too. But this is like intersectionality is basically let's enforce traditional gender roles in the face of obvious male disadvantage, because we're gonna reframe all male disadvantage in terms of things other than being male, right? Just to reaffirm that men are actors and women are acted upon. And then feminism says, where did these traditional gender roles that discriminate against male victims of anything come from? From you, from intersectionality, from your moral caste system. They come from you. And then they blame patriarchy because patriarchy can't actually defend itself against what feminism says it does. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
Patriarchy never mounts a defense. So powerful, yet never defends itself against any accusations at all, ever. Okay.
All right. Jojo's snoring. I hope he doesn't hear. Oh, he stopped. He's awake now.
It's fine.
He was having a dream, I think. All right. So should I keep going through the oppression thing, or should I put a different search term in here?
No, just keep going through the oppression thing. Let's just see.
All right. Oppression and sexual violence. So what's the context of this? The impact of the learning exchanges on the capacity of the sites to enhance their sexual assault services was seen most profoundly because of the learning exchange on building cultures of trauma-informed care. This 3-day learning exchange, co-facilitated by Tiombe Wallace and Nina Yusuf, covered oppression and sexual violence. So I think they're bringing in like it sounds like this is more intersectionality. So
yep.
And as an example of how a shift toward active listening and trauma-informed approaches in existing services can transform those services is seen in one staff member's description of how their counseling services have changed. We have come to see the work as a much broader effort around oppressions and violence rather than merely violence against women. This has changed the way staff describe services and has opened the door to conversations in counseling sessions that might have been overlooked before.
Yeah, violence against women and violence against minorities. Like violence against women and violence against all of these subcategories of man.
Yeah.
Like, and they think that this is an improvement. Yeah, men are still the scapegoat, but you know, like they can lessen it a bit if they're disabled or black or I don't know, gay. Although they're still the, you know, gay men are the straight men of gay people. Well,
yeah, that's right.
How does
gay men are the straight people of gay people?
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. Though consequently, survivors are experiencing greater support within a holistic framework. For example, they discuss how sexual violence is experienced across the lifespan, how coping skills develop at different ages, how personhood is developed through learned sexualization. This shift was needed for us to really become a dual program and to raise the bar of our sexual assault services. It requires our staff to develop a unique set of skills for being sexual assault advocates apart from the skills of a domestic violence advocate. On paper, the skills look similar, but in practice, they feel very different. Okay,
no, keep going.
Should I look for another word?
No, just keep going with the next paragraph.
All right. Despite the diversity of programs, there was a recurring theme when talking about barriers to engaging in active listening and trauma-informed responses. Screening protocols and intake forms were repeatedly named as working against listening to survivors and allowing them to take the lead on what they want to share. Staff saw the problems early in this SADI process. We act like we need a form to work with sexual assault survivors. We train staff and volunteers to the form, not to the individual sitting in front of them or on the other end of the phone line. Our forms and intake protocols really get in the way. They are the opposite of active listening and trauma-informed. But how do we get away from them? Is that the bit you wanted me to read?
Yes. So the SADI process the people who are involved in actually helping sexual assault survivors are pushing back against the SADI process because it turns everybody into a checkbox on a form, right? Instead of an individual. Congratulations. And it does so because it's trying, and literally, what it's trying to do is square the circle with male survivors. So it wants the staff, I'm guessing, it wants the staff not to treat a male survivor as a man, but a male survivor as a disabled person, Black person, a gay person, a trans man, whatever, but not actually recognize that there are problems unique to men, especially when they are victims of sexual assault. Because this patriarchy, which never defends itself from any of the feminist allegations, apparently is much more lenient towards women's sexual assault towards men than the reverse. Despite the fact that every society in history did not let its serfs and peasants use the tools that it used to maintain the social hierarchy. So lords in the past wouldn't let serfs and peasants have swords. Apparently, this patriarchy takes swords away from men and gives them to women and says, use them as you will. Men are a sexual resource for you. This is ground zero for the absolute disintegration of female feminist ideology. That's why they're here, and that's why they're sneaking in and getting their tentacles in and saying, use the form, remember your caste system, remember that men are actually the problem. Okay, just keep going.
Yeah. I got a super chat from Brown Gaijin for $5. Thank you, Brown Gaijin. It says, I have to go to work, but I wanted to show some love. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't think we've heard from Brown Gaijin before.
Huh?
Have we heard from Brown Gaijin before? So welcome if you're new.
I feel like maybe that sounds. Oh no, I was thinking about Gaijin Goomba. That was the guy that used to watch us back in the day. But I don't know. I welcome. I guess maybe he has. But yeah, appreciate you joining us. So, all right. Let's see. Should I? I'll go to the next line here. So 11.
Yeah.
So more every time I see oppression, it just comes up in the context.
No,
of
just
race.
continue reading with the last one.
Oh, okay. All right. Consequently, the three of the sites prioritized reviewing and changing their forms and intake protocols. Exemplifying this work are the changes crime victim services in the Gila River Indian community made into their intake form. Their prior forms were what?
That's half the sites.
Yeah.
Changed it. Okay, keep going.
Oh. Their prior forms were more akin to what might be seen in a criminal report and included detailed information about the perpetrator, assault, and survivors' own behaviors and demeanor. Putting the needs of survivors first and thinking about what it was like for survivors answering those questions, staff at Crime Victim Services discarded those original forms and started from scratch. The goals were to better protect survivor confidentiality, emphasize building relationships with survivors, listening to their stories and affirming their experiences, eliminate implicit judgments and interpretations, reduce the amount.
Wait, I was incorrect. So essentially these fact-based forms, they got half of them got rid of them to focus on something else. Well, they're not going to get very, very accurate statistics. Let's go to the next instance of oppression.
Yeah, that's why they're affirming, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is effectiveness of specific services, referrals, crisis, legal counseling, ongoing well-being. Services were rated for the perceived effectiveness for serving specific groups of survivors. These ratings reflect a more nuanced view of services and notable increases in perceived effectiveness for all groups of survivors. Increases range from differences in ratings of 1.1 to 0.1. The groups for which staff saw their effectiveness increasing the most were for serving men and boys, transgender survivors, and gay/lesbian/bisexual survivors. Those increases may be attributed to, but there are transgender survivors that are men biologically, and there are gay and bisexual men as well.
Hmm.
but they're like treating them as separate categories. See, that's like another way that
Who
I think
established
they
who
hmm?
established that these interventions benefited men? That's the question here.
Yeah. You're just shrinking down that demographic though, because they end up falling into, that's what I'm saying, like with the intersectionality, right? Like if they broke it down, if they have a category for men and boys, and then they have a category for gays, and they have a category for bisexuals, and they have a category for transgender, then all of those other categories will necessarily include men. I mean, like the transgender, maybe biological men. So that makes the men category smaller. You see what I mean? Like if they made a category for, undocumented migrant men or black men or Latino men, then they could treat it as a separate category from the one that's just called men. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but that's like the sense I get. I think it's weird that they're talking about gay survivors separate from men and boys. These increases may be attributed to the training aspect of the SADI that emphasize understanding the specific needs of survivors and the ways that racism and oppression can impact survivors in different ways because of how trauma intersects with other identities and experiences. In addition to specific trainings on serving male, and here this is again, listen to this and think about it, okay? In addition to specific trainings on serving male, LGBTQ, Native American, and teen survivors, the needs of different survivors and anti-racism/oppression perspectives were a component of most training. Whereas prior to the SADI staff at these programs tended to approach serving the survivors or all survivors the same way, by the end of the SADI, they understood that different needs survivors may have and were more prepared to respond to those needs. So they literally added these other intersectional identities because they didn't like the fact that everybody was treated the same at first.
At an individual trauma-based level.
Yeah.
And also, this is the oppression narrative. So what's being added is men are oppressors, everybody else is oppressed. That's what's being added. Okay, so the services were also rated for the perceived effectiveness for serving specific groups of survivors. The question is, like, what does this specifically, how does this specifically inform the intervention with male survivors? Because without any information, the only thing that this adds is making male survivors into oppressors in their narrative. Okay, and if they're not doing that, then why are they saying, well, we're teaching this narrative, but we're just not doing it for male survivors because on some level we know that's morally reprehensible? Like, what are they actually doing? So when they say these ratings reflect a more nuanced view of services, perceived effectiveness for all groups of survivors increases range from differences in ratings of 1.1 to 0.1. That is minuscule. The groups for which staff saw their effectiveness increasing most was for serving men and boys, transgender survivors, and gay, lesbian, bisexual survivors. All right, so staff thought they were more effective. And if you actually look at the stats, effectiveness of specific services, like the only one that actually increased was counseling. And and it increased marginally, supposedly. And how much of the effect of that increase is these people realizing that they have to say, oh yeah, it increased. So in terms of referrals, decreased, crisis decreased, legal decreased, ongoing decreased, medical decreased, well-being decreased, effectiveness of specific services decreased. Most of them decreased as a result of this intervention. What a surprise. Except for counseling. Why? Well, that could be simply these counselors saying, well, we have to say it's good somehow because that's what they want to hear. It could also be the effect of feminist counselors being emboldened to start engaging in secondary trauma of male survivors. Ugh, this is gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So effectiveness of services to specific groups. Says that boys and men, according to the counselors, I believe this is according to the counselors, boys and men were more served. The groups of which staff saw their effectiveness increasing. So the staff are saying, "Oh yeah, we're better at serving boys and men," because you're telling them what now? What is it
If
you're
they're
telling them?
oppressors, they need to check their privilege, and that'll
According to
help
this
them
framework,
heal.
that's what you're telling them. So the
Yeah.
staff are saying we're serving them better now by
They
doing
basically beat their yeah, it's like they're basically saying that they're more useful to them.
yes, I guess.
Um,
Like,
yeah.
but here's the thing. Remember when we originally read the report on this from the National Sexual Violence Resource Center? The
Mhm.
staff say that this has increased their ability to serve men and boys. The men and boys say no. There's a
Yeah.
disconnect there. So if we go with what the men and boys saying, which I don't even know why they ask, because the men and
Mm,
boys are their scapegoat group. What are they? They don't genuinely care what they think, especially since they've declared this a success because the staff are saying, "Oh yeah, we serve them better," right? And the men and boys are saying, "No, we don't like this." But who cares, right? We know what's best for them. And what's best for men and boys is to be reframed in the actors in the grand pageant of life. You know, the moment these boys, these men and boys might perceive that they might actually be victims of women or acted upon by women. No, we need to reframe that. We know what they need. I mean, that alone is completely disreputable. The fact that boys and men are saying, no, this isn't helping. And these people are going, well, but the staff say it is, and we say it is, so shut the fuck up. Who are you to say how you should be served when you're a victim of sexual violence and we are counseling through you through your trauma? Who are you to say, man, how you should be served? How dare you think that you should be centered in your own trauma counseling? How oppressive, how patriarchal, how privileged.
mhm.
Okay, let me see if there's anything for. Oh yeah, there was actually staff that was pushing back a bit. Um, okay, so we can go to table 7, staff turnover at SADI sites.
What page is that?
It's page 88.
Okay. Um, 88?
Yeah, 88. Table
I don't
7. You can do a search
see.
on table 7. Search on table 7.
All right, I'll just search table 7.
Yep.
Mm. All right, staff turnover at SADI sites. Page
Yeah.
92 here. So,
Oh, okay. That's weird.
all right, no, it's
Yep.
fine. I guess that's because the numbered page might be 88.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, but it's further up than that. Okay. So minimum staff size, like, is it, or are we going to read
Okay. All
this?
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So staff size percentage left by the end of SADI. So 75%. Okay. So this is the amount of staff that's left by the end of the SADI intervention. Okay. So the
Oh,
minimum,
I see.
so the
Yeah.
most the place that saw the most staff lost 33% of its staff. The place the place that saw the least amount of, or the mean of staff loss, was 23%. And there was I guess one place that didn't see any staff lost,
Yeah.
or one place that saw 4% up, one place that saw 12% down. So basically this freaking intervention loses staff overall. Overall lost two staff. At least that's my interpretation from this.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the mean, it lost about 2.
And if you go back to the next paragraph, just read staff turnover. So staff are rebelling against this.
Where's that?
If there are increases, I wonder who what ideology those increases represent.
Yeah.
Who those increases that are representatives of. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Staff turnover has long been talked about as a problem in the fields of sexual and domestic violence services. The SADI represented an opportunity to systematically track staff turnover across multiple years. As shown in Table 1, the rates of turnover were shockingly high for all SADI sites across the 4 years of their involvement with the SADI. In the best case, 2/3 of staff who were with their program at the start of the SADI had left the program by the end of the SADI. For one site, none of the staff who were with their program at the start of the SADI had left the program by the end of the SADI. For one site, none of the staff who were with their program at the start of the SADI were still there at the end. The turnover was, in fact, higher than what these numbers represent because in many cases there were multiple changes in staff for a single position during the course of the SADI. These numbers only look at the beginning and end, not the multiple changes that occurred in between. This level of turnover poses many challenges for dual/multi-service programs. Simply maintaining services at the current level is a formidable task when there are frequently empty positions having to be covered and new staff having to be trained. Within that context, there is little room for thinking about how to enhance sexual assault services.
Enhance with this ideology.
Yes. When that work is taken on, as it was in the SADI, maintaining continuity of planning, cultivating program-wide awareness, and of buy-in to the efforts and implementing plans can seem to be nearly impossible. This makes what the SADI sites achieved all the more remarkable. So, like,
that's a glow up
despite failure.
Yeah, success. This is a success, guys. Now, we don't know for sure if it was the SADI program that caused this incredible rate of turnover, like 100% gone over the 4 years of the SADI intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we'd have to look at years before the SADI, but I imagine that this turnover isn't normal. But, that's just showing the success of the program somehow.
Yeah, I guess people just weren't ready.
All right.
It was too cutting edge or something.
So the next section that I wanted to look at was when the staff actually talked about the problems, but that's going to give me a moment to actually figure out how to find that. I think it would be
that's all right.
Individual. I misspelled that. Okay.
Looking to see here. All right. What am I looking up? I could search it. What's the term? Individual?
I'm trying to find, okay, so here we go. I think it is, if you go up through it's the 49th incident of individual, but you probably want to go up through the incidences rather than down. So you can find, actually, let me just give you the number. It is 89 labeled and 93 in the.
All right, that makes sense. 93.
Okay, so.
All right.
Okay, so there was openness demonstrated at all sites.
It was like literally right here. 93.
Yeah. Actually, let's just continue with the anti-racism oppression stance.
All right.
Let's just continue with those paragraphs. So we're going to discover how they made these people's lives worse.
Yeah. Anti-racism/oppression stance. A basic tenet of the SADI was that effective sexual assault services cannot happen if there is not an understanding and direct response to racism and oppression. So we can't help you until we acknowledge the elephant in the room that we made up called oppression and systemic systems and institutions and all of that.
Yeah, until we apply our
structural systemic systems.
Until our moral cast. You would think that if somebody presents with a traumatic experience, sexual assault, that the focus would be on helping them live a full life and overcome their trauma. No, the focus should be on teaching them feminist moral caste system and where they stand within it. Oh, God.
All right. To the extent that programs do not endorse and enact an anti-racism/oppression approach, they will be limited in their capacity to serve survivors from marginalized groups.
Not men.
Among the SADI sites, most of them ascribe to an anti-racism/oppression language from the beginning of the SADI. However, their understanding of what that means varied greatly. Even more, staff capacity and willingness to allow themselves and their work to be shaped by that understanding range from active engagement to passive or active resistance.
All right, let me
have, like a moral center, and they're like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah. Okay. Their capacity to serve survivors from marginalized groups. Let's just go through the marginalization of male victims of sexual assault. When they're children, they are less likely as adults. If they are sexually abused, verified as children, they are 4 times less likely to reveal this to anyone as adults. It takes longer for them to operationalize their experiences of abuse, right? Surveys actively discriminate against them. Some surveys don't even capture the extent of male sexual abuse because we as a society are just in the process of starting to recognize it as a criminal problem. Okay. They are not served by police. In fact, they're more likely to be laughed out of a police department than actually have their situation treated with seriousness. Although if you are experiencing that, do go, because you never know. In the future, the woman who raped you might attempt to get child support. This could probably help your case. So please do get police reports for these incidences. And police generally are getting better about this. At least the police are, right? So they experience discrimination on a society-wide level because there's no narratives around especially male victims of female sexual assaulters. They don't have equivalent services because of feminist initiatives that are trying to keep rape and sexual assault female only or female mostly, right? When these organizations try to intervene, they intervene to turn these men and boys into ciphers for their ideology. So they're not seeing them as centering them. They're seeing them as a tool to an end, centering their trauma and centering the recovery of their trauma. They see them as a tool to an end. Every step, men are more marginalized. Men and boys are more marginalized as sexual assault survivors. They're more marginalized in even being able to recognize it because of the narratives around sexual assault that are perpetrated not by patriarchy, but by feminism itself and by women, by the way. Don't blame it on men, right? They are discriminated against in terms of services. They aren't believed when they talk about it, right? They don't really have services, at least services that aren't free of ideological possession, right? That want to reframe them as the problem. Okay. They are discriminated against in survey instruments that don't properly capture the sexual assault of men and boys, or they euphemistically frame it as something other than rape when it is rape, right? Or they prioritize using female surveyors, which guarantees an undercount of male victims, or they do something which is what the Intimate Partner Sexual Violence Survey did recently. They've started to do this weird scattershot thing where they just are like, oh, how many people live in your house? Okay, so what would be their ages? Oh, I see. So 40, 45, 12, and 2. Okay, have you ever been butt fucked by a monster? Like, and then people are like, what? Because before they would start with like just like little questions to start to get people to understand what they're wanting. Like, have you ever experienced unwanted touching? And then they would go from there. Now they're dropping rape questions right in the middle of wherever. And people are just, not only are men not disclosing for obvious reasons, there are people who are bouncing from these surveys. So they changed their methodology to do that. And now they're finding less and less male victims. I wonder why. It's because in order to capture sexual assault victimization, you can't just drop these questions in the middle of other questions, right? You have to create a dialogue because people don't feel comfortable responding to them. Just you socking them in the fucking mug with it and then responding to it. Nobody feels comfortable. Women don't feel comfortable with it. Men especially don't feel comfortable with it. And I'm guessing that they changed the methodology because they know that men especially don't feel comfortable with it. So men discriminated against in the narratives around sexual assault, in law, in the surveys, in policy, in services. And now you're coming to me with this bullshit about how marginalized groups, which I guarantee your ideology does not consider men to be part of, and how they have to be served. I think it would be actually more reasonable for these people to be taught about all of the marginalization of male victims of sexual assault, not the intersectional moral caste system that doesn't recognize that the most marginalized victims of sexual assault are men and boys. Okay, rant over. I took you on a bit of a squirrel ride there.
That's all right. All right, so should I keep going? All right. Believing
Okay.
that anti-racism and oppression work is integral to serving survivors of sexual violence, the SADI technical assistance team began training sites on these issues from the first learning exchange on oppression and trauma. That training covered oppression theory, including understanding theory and tactics of oppression, microaggressions, and privilege, power, and culture. Historical trauma, including exploring privilege, practicing interrupting oppressive remarks, and courageous conversations. Intersections of sexual violence and oppression, including rape as a tool of and a result of oppression and culturally specific barriers. Impact of oppression on healing, including analysis of programs' readiness to respond to marginalized groups. So, okay, let me just finish this. There was openness demonstrated by all sites at the training. Indicators included sites sharing encounters with racism in their communities and asking for feedback on how they handled those encounters, acknowledgments of the need to weave anti-racism/oppression work into all work, endorsement of the idea that sexual violence is a form of oppression and is related to other oppressions, open expressions of dissatisfaction with staff members' own programs lacking diverse representation and struggling with how to make a commitment to diversity real, engagement from all sites with the training discussions and exercises, high levels of engagement across sites informally outside of the training discussions and exercises, final sharing on what participants were taking back to their programs, including better understanding the layers of oppression. Ugh. New tools to respond to oppression, stretching outside of one's comfort zone, critical role of anti-oppression work, ways to engage in subversive action for positive change, and the need to work on individuals' and programs' own internalized oppression.
Can you understand why there was such a freaking high turnover? And the thing
Yes.
is that we don't have anything to compare it to, although this seems to be appallingly high. So they're going into a set of services that already probably is difficult to keep staff, right? And they're making everything freaking worse.
Yeah, because they're not actually taught. The agenda, it seems to me, has nothing to do with helping victims of sexual assault and rape.
No, it
It has
doesn't.
nothing to do with it. It's a vehicle to push this shit. That's it. That's what it is. They're gonna take these people who are traumatized. They're not gonna help them, and they're gonna turn them into activists for their cause. That's it. That's what that's what this is. Like
Yep.
I don't see. I don't. That's what I see.
And
They're gonna turn them into activists. And you know what? Broken people are much easier to mold in this way. So you take somebody traumatized by an experience, looking for help, and they go to these people and they're like, we're gonna give you a purpose. But they're not gonna help them. In fact, if they're boys and men, they're gonna be worse off because they're gonna be the subject of learning that they're the problem,
well, they've
while
had their
also finding that their only way to repent is to join their cult. I
yeah.
mean, that's you know.
Well, they've just gone through an experience that sort of strips away their human value, and now they're going to say, "Well, little Timmy, you know how you can get that back? You can become a foot soldier for the
Yeah.
ideology." Like, and this is allowed. And the funny thing is that the staff turnover at these sites is almost heartening. It's almost
Yeah, it means that
heartening.
people are like, that sounds like bullshit to
That
me.
sounds like bullshit. There are people who are working with actual sexual assault survivors who are rejecting this because they know it's harmful. They know
Mhm.
it's psychotic and sick. And this is colonialism. This is feminism being like, you got a nice sexual assault survivor center there. It'd be a shame if we called you a bunch of sexists. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Here's
it
what
says
you need to keep
here,
going.
let me see, where was it? I thought it was 92.
It's extortion and
I mean, they tell you
colonialism.
what they're doing. They tell you what they're doing.
Okay.
93, let me see. Yeah, here it is. No, wait. Yes. So this bit right here, just so you know that they are open about what they're doing. Final sharing on what participants were taking back to their programs, including better understanding the layers of oppression, new tools to respond to oppression, stretching outside of one's comfort zone, critical role of anti-oppression work, ways to engage in subversive action for positive change, and the need to work on individuals and programs' own internalized oppression. So they are openly telling us that they
What
are
they're doing.
showing that they are
This is a
engaging in
struggle session.
subversive action to
This is
positive change. Yeah.
this is a struggle session which they are inflicting on victims of sexual assault. Okay.
Yep.
At no point do these people ever sit back and say, "Are we the baddies?" Like that trauma, okay, services for victims of sexual assault is not where you push your ideology. Right? That is not appropriate. And the fact that you are pushing your ideology and you are centering your ideology over an individual framework of trauma healing, you are the baddies.
Mhm.
You are the baddies. Yes. Okay, I want you to go, let's see where it's, go to, keep going. Just
Um,
keep reading after that last one because it's going to start talking about the effectiveness of this program, which, it might actually be heartening to read about. No, don't go any further. Go back to where
all
you
right,
were.
from here.
Yeah, even with a
Okay.
high level, yeah.
However, even with the high level of engagement endorsement of the ideas, when all sites were asked to turn to their own plans for enhancing sexual assault services and to identify ways to incorporate the ideas and commitments to anti-racism/oppression work into their change plans and services, the discussions quickly slowed down and became much more vague than when the discussions were about responding to racism and oppression outside the programs.
So they were trying to get these people to force this shit into their programs. And then suddenly you get a whole bunch of evasive language, sort of like Humphreys in Yes Minister, when he doesn't want to do something. He's like, in the fullness of time, we will consider our options to
Yeah.
regard the possibility of a committee looking into the issue of, so you can imagine these sexual assault services are like, okay, we can talk about, but not in the context of our client therapist relationship. And they're just trying to get these thugs off the scent. Because that's what this is. This is thuggery. This is ideological thuggery. They're going in and they're forcing these people to abide by their ideological restrictions in their therapies. And these people are resisting it. Because I guess some psychologists still understand the concept of do no harm. And they
Yeah.
realize that this is harm. All right, let's keep going.
All right.
Just keep reading.
3 of the sites continue to openly work on enacting their anti-racism/oppression commitments. Examples of how sites enacted these commitments included replicating with staff the exercises and discussions about oppression they had at the Learning Exchange on Oppression and Trauma, exploring the specific nature of historical trauma and oppression in the different cultural communities served by the program, building models of practice that are specifically grounded in the values and practices of the cultural communities served by the program, as a consequence of realizing that culturally specific models of services largely do not exist, committing to creating them. However, as the SADI progressed, the other 3 sites demonstrated passive and or active resistance to technical assistance providers, encouraging them to look more closely and self-critically at their individual and organizational capacity to serve marginalized communities. Sometimes the resistance was clearly stated, such as when staff at one site said, "Why should we emphasize culturally specific services? We just work with individual survivors." More often, it was expressed through behaviors such as actively reaching out to and investing in bilingual services for the local Latin community, Latin with an Latin community. Are we trying this again, guys? Stop. While overlooking the needs of the local African American community, but they speak English. do you need to get like an Ebonics guy on there to be like, yo, fam? Like that, oh my god, this fucking website. Silencing women and men of color during staff discussions. Men of color, not men, just like the okay. Only sending staff who identify as people of color to the learning
So
exchange.
basically what we're seeing is
Yeah.
these individuals are not complying, so now they're going to be accused by the party of being, anti-party.
Yeah, they're going to
Okay.
become labeled problematic. Only sending staff who identify as people of color to the learning exchange on oppression and trauma, but no other learning exchanges, or never sending people of color to the learning exchanges, excluding people of color from their own internal change teams, segregated teams apparently, denying that leadership existed among communities of color in their local areas, despite clear evidence of such leadership. Refusing to meet with service providers from nearby communities of color because it was inconvenient to do so, stating that anti-racism/oppression frameworks were not relevant to their communities. It's not. Dismissing the experiences of staff from culturally specific SADI sites, overt statements that reflected stereotypes and prejudices against communities of color. We're going to have a chicken and waffle night at the local facility. Do you guys want some? Hell yeah, I like me some chicken and waffles. Problematic. Can't have it. Even if you I like that stuff, but okay. All right. Do you want to say anything to that? Like I'm dying inside.
I'm just like, half of these programs just engaged in passive and active resistance against this colonialization. Good on you. Good on you. I wonder if those were the ones that didn't experience as much of a staff turnover, right? Because
Yeah.
the thing is that they said that 3 sites experienced a huge amount of staff turnover, and 3 sites didn't. I wonder if the 3 sites that told them to go pound sand were the ones that didn't experience as much staff turnover. And again, these are colonialists shaking down. This is the mob shaking down sexual assault survivor organizations. They're shaking them down. They're like, you got some clout? Deliver it, or we'll call you a bunch of problematic organizations. You'll lose some federal funding. Give us that clout. Yeah. Make sure those raped people, they learn what's really important, which is to push the party line, push the feminist line. And then these sexual assault counselors are like, this is about centering the individual who has experienced trauma, not your ideology. Please, FUCK off.
Yeah.
At least we have that, guys. There are still some human beings out there. But this is like being pushed by the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. This is federally funded to a degree. And this is basically feminist ideological
It came out of the Violence Against Women Act. Like that's like it came from that, and the the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, I think it was. So like that it came out of that. So it just sort of like makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I mean, unbelievable, huh? And this is what Grok considered to be
Monstrous.
Feminists caring about men as victims. No, not really. And again, right? Huge staff turnover for whatever reason during this program. 3 sites where the staff was actively resistant against this program, and men and boys said they didn't like it. They had the lowest rates among men and boys. But this program is like 3/5 of the section on helping men and boys.
Mm-hmm.
Helping men and boys to realize that they're the problem. Am I right? Oh, good Lord. Okay. So should we do a palate cleanser, or do you want to do that?
Yeah.
that
No. I can see what this is. It's essentially, yes, like they're selling a struggle session, and they're upset that not everyone is reciprocal, that they're like not taking it well. So I have well, yeah. What do you
You
got? You
have
want to?
that trailer of a
I
woman.
do have a trailer. I'd laugh at it. That's basically about the extent of it. I don't know if we could. It's about 3 minutes long.
Oh, good Lord. No, it probably deserves a
Too
rating or
long.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, too long. Let's
We
just
can
do
do it
like,
on Friday.
yeah, we can
It's
do it on Friday.
there's a new show coming out on Apple Plus. I'm just gonna throw it out there so you guys know. It's called The Savant, starring Jessica Chastain, and well, it's about a mother who, well, let me see, like it's an upcoming American crime thriller miniseries. It's aimed at women. Created by Melissa James Gibson, and it's based on an article by Andrea Stanley. So I think it was like a New York Times article or something. They made a whole show around this article. Let's see if I can find it while you're getting the palate cleanser ready.
Yeah.
Let's see. What?
Yeah, I got something. I'm going to send it to you. But
All right.
yeah, let's read it.
So yeah,
Little bit of it.
it's inspired by a true life story entitled "Is It Possible to Stop a Mass Shooting Before It Happens," which featured in Cosmopolitan in August 2019 of a woman who has come to be known as the Savant, who infiltrates online hate groups in order to prevent large-scale public attacks. Oh, I have this file. I can just play it. Hold on. I have that video, the Mary Morgan one. I actually saw it.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, okay. Well, I wonder if she's ever infiltrated our group. Because
the Savant, I don't know. Online hate groups, yeah.
We're an online hate group because
of course we are, yeah.
I say that male victims of sexual assault should not be treated as the problem.
That's why I picked it out, because I was like, oh, that seems relevant to our interests.
Yeah. Well, it is. Like, when I started this, I was a young feminist, and I thought the most important feminist issue was that women should also serve their country in wartime. And then I was abused. Like, I realized I am the only feminist who gives a crap about that. And also, I was concerned about male victims of sexual assault and female victims of women as well, right? The ones who are most marginalized. And as I've advocated for that issue, I've come to realize that feminists aren't like ignorant of the existence of male victims of sexual assault by women. They are deliberately suppressing it. And they are deliberately suppressing it because it is inconsistent with their ideology that men use sexual assault to uphold patriarchy. Now, how could they do that if they were equal victims of women's sexual assault? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't work. So they gotta push it down, ostracize it, move out, make sexual assault be seen as a female or more majority female thing. And men are really just victims of violence against women when it happens to them, like they did in the UK. And gradually, over the last 20 years, I've realized that this isn't a position taken out of ignorance. It's a position taken out of deliberate malice. And it's a deliberate malice. Like, malice isn't just hatred, it's also neglect, right? It's knowing that there's a negative outcome and not caring because you want to pursue some other interest like money, right? So this is malicious, a malicious omission, omission. Sorry, my wires got crossed there for a second. This is a malignant omission because it challenges feminist ideology. Feminist ideology makes money, generates clout, and they don't want to address these issues. And they basically set feminist ideology against recognizing the full scope of sexual abuse of men by women. They've set it against. They basically made defeating feminism a prerequisite towards recognizing the extent of male victimization by women. They've done that. Mm-hmm. They've set their ideology against male victims of women. And that understanding didn't come to my mind until like the Amber Heard trial. It was starting to percolate. And then this year, I just realized it. Everything slotted in my mind. Everything that I've seen over the last 20 years. There is no world in which feminist advocacy exists and male victims of female rapists are fully acknowledged. Fully acknowledged. It just doesn't happen. Okay.
Yeah.
That's hate speech. All right, let's watch this.
All right, let's check this out. This is Mary Morgan. She's on a show called Pop Culture Crisis. It's basically like a part of Tim Pool's network. So they work for there's a lot of overlap. But she talks specifically about pop culture things. All right, so let's listen. This is this is a good one.
The women of Book Talk have permanently damaged their brains. They held yet another Book Talk event in real life that ended in disaster, called Sinners and Stardust, where your darkest dreams become reality. Okay, this was their dark romance ball. Yeah, nice. Totally normal stuff. Yeah, no safe words. Yes, very normal. Right. Yeah, this is about books. Here is just one of the male actors they hired to choke attendees and point weapons at them. Get your bag, king. It's like, who's gonna tell them that the stripper doesn't actually like you? Yup, and we're supposed to believe this is just for women who really love reading books. Absolutely nothing weird about it, except for those allegations. Apparently one of the few men there was SA'd by multiple women, made to describe against his will how he would hypothetically kidnap a woman in real life, like men do in the dark romance books. At least one woman tried to stalk him by sneaking an AirTag on him. Is anyone surprised? You just have to see the organizers of the event, aka
this is a little bit off-settled. They stalked him down and group sexually assaulted him.
Yes.
They cornered him, stalked him down, cornered him, and group sexually assaulted him.
Yep.
All right.
Coffee mugs in the chat, guys. Okay, let's watch the rest of this.
We've got Nighthawk, lover of smut. At least you're being honest. Resident cinnamon roll, and the bodacious beauty babe. Okay, you get it. Obviously, if some group of men put on a fan convention all about celebrating their violent, graphic fantasies, women would rightly disapprove of it and not feel safe there. These women are deranged, and we have to shame this behavior. Or unfortunately, we're gonna see more of it.
Let me put it this way. Men dressing up as cryptids and doing all this other stuff, that's not the deranged behavior. Okay, let's be honest. I mean, it is what it is. It's like cosplay, right? The deranged behavior is the sexual assault. And it happens at romance conventions. Like, this is a persistent problem with the romance community. Okay? It happens at normal vanilla romance conventions. So it's not the dark aspects of this, although, it is not great. It is the sexual assault. I just want to point that out because I think we get into this kind of, it's about the dark romance or whatever else, when it's really should be focused on the fact that these women have violent sexual entitlement to men's sexuality, and that exists across the entire spectrum of romance. So it's not just this that has the problem, is what I'm getting at.
Well, one of the main issues is that female romance novels is porn for women, and no one acts like it is. So that's why only porn for men, which is the visual stuff, that's what gets a lot of attention, a lot of pearl clutching and that kind of thing. But like romance novels for women, which is basically porn for them, no one bats an eye. They don't really care. You can get it at Walmart. You can get it at the drugstore. You can go to like a CVS and you can get those books there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main thing is that we don't think of it the same at all, even though it is. So,
Well, it has the same effect.
What?
we don't think of any of this. Okay, sorry. It has the
No.
same effect. It actually probably has a worse effect on women from the little research that I've seen,
Mm.
because it encourages incredibly destructive attitudes towards your partners and expectations that tend to degrade relationships. Like if you're going to expect your partner to mind read, it's going to be a problem in your relationship. And then also it encourages like some really dark behavior among women. But like I said, this is a problem with the entire romance genre, which now has consumed freaking everything in the fiction genre, like historical, science fiction, fantasy, everything has been consumed into romance, has been consumed into women's porn. And you're right. It does need more constraints because we don't splash men's porn everywhere. We expect them to put it in a brown paper bag. We don't expose children to it. We try not to. And yet women's porn is just everywhere. It's ubiquitous now. It's in Barnes and Nobles on like giant shelves with celebration of monster fucking, right?
Yeah.
No, it's yeah, okay. It's fine. You have these fantasies, fine. You want an outlet, fine. Take responsibility for the fact that that should be contained and outside of polite society. And also take responsibility for your violent sexual entitlement as women. You remember we just went through that whole thing about how feminists are like, how do we help male victims of sexual assault, especially by women? But while maintaining a framework that sexual assault is gendered, that attitude that sexual assault is something men do that women do not do, or just don't do in the same way, or it's not as important, right? That attitude leads to stuff like this. It empowers stuff like this, where men are being sexually assaulted. It empowers the romance community to continue to not address its persistent problems of sexually assaulting its male talent, because feminists say that rape is gendered. So what they're doing can't be rape, right? Because they're goalies. What they're doing can't be sexually assault because they're goyles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So feminism is constructing a rape culture and forcing it on sexual assault services. But at least half of those sexual assault services pushed back, and at least half of those sexual assault services almost completely lost their staff. So
Yeah.
at least somebody's not appreciating it. Although honestly, if it continues at this rate, this sadistic program that's being pushed by the National Sexual Violence Ideological Center is going to basically destroy every sexual assault resource in the country. Like they'll either dissolve because everybody will quit, or they will actively push back and then be called sexist and be forced to dissolve. So nobody's going to have sexual assault resources. Guys, thank you, feminism. You're such a peach. You're making the world better.
Of course.
And women will continue to rape and sexually assault men at romance conventions because that's not something women do. Feminism told us that. Rape is gendered. Oh, good grief. Okay.
All right. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I don't think we can do
Gotta go
3
pick up
minutes of
Lindsay
a
soon.
freaking, like, yeah, we have like, what, 15 minutes to do the 3 minutes of that. I think we're gonna have to do it in
No.
another-
We can do
Did
that
you-
later. I already got rid of it
I
anyway.
talked a lot. Did you have anything to add?
No, it's fine. I'll just say this. Your privates are now named after the last TV show or movie you watched. So what is their name?
Oh, God.
The last thing you saw is what your privates are now named.
Well, No Man's Zone.
No, really? No Man's Land?
No Man's Zone. No Man's Zone. It's the
No Man's Zone is the
it's
last.
the Russian
Okay.
TV series that's sort of poking fun at a feminist utopia.
Yeah.
Although the latest episode had like a bunch of patriarchs except it was just hilariously ridiculous. And the patriarchs were actually appropriating the things that had happened to the group of men that was living outside of all of this. The patriarchs were like former men who were called seed keepers, who were the ones who were basically responsible for inseminating all the women. But it was a completely sexless society. And anyway, they got loose, and then they established the most ridiculous patriarchy, where they had these like gigantic fly swatters, and they would use that to like menace the women, but they would never actually hit them. And then they would make them peel potatoes for like half an hour at a time. They'd be like, for punishment, you get 3 shifts in peeling potatoes, which is like an hour and a half of peeling potatoes. So it was just the most ludicrous thing. And it is pretty funny. And throughout it all, there's this one guy called the Baron who's just like, he's supposed to be this Russian tough guy, but he pretty much just tolerates everyone and their shenanigans. And he's very sympathetic because of that.
So I got some answers from the chat. I want to read them. So Simply Obvious says killer clowns from outer space.
Oh God.
Robert Johnson says no country for old men. Mnemonic says a fistful of dollars. That's good. Cutie says nobody. That's a movie, but yeah, that's good. All right, cool. Well, last thing I watched was Jason and the Argonauts, so seems appropriate. Jason and the Argonaut.
The Argonaut.
Anyway, so yeah, I guess we'll end it there.
Yeah, well, let me just poke the voles. It's just taking a while.
Yep.
Come on, you. God damn. Let me just refresh this. Maybe it'll speed it up. Leave page, yes. Just to make sure that we've got all our super chows in order.
Cool.
It's just going to take a moment here. Oh, you did a really, like, I thought the Monday interview with This Is Shaw was really great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably have him on again because there's like other stuff I wanted to talk about with him.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of stuff that you could talk about.
I also sent him an article to look at too, and yeah, so we'll see. Right now, I'm just thinking about getting to what.
Well, we got. Oh, okay, all right. So we got. So big thank you to Yulkley who put in $500 to the meetup. Thank you. He's actually going to be at the meetup too, so I'm looking forward to meeting him.
Cool.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. We're gonna have about double that we did last year.
Oh, sweet. Cool.
Yeah. So it's growing a little bit.
Place for all us all to sit to chill at.
Yeah, this place to chill at, to do some presentations. I'm going to do I'm hoping that my aim is that the presentations will be a bit more informal than they were.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do like a behind the scenes stream, like Badger stream. Like we could stream at the event and then have people in the audience like ask us questions like we're doing now, except with Hannah and Mike. And I don't know if Karen, I don't know what's happening with Karen. She's got
personal stuff that she's dealing with.
Man, just been whacked with personal stuff in the last 2 months. So, but yeah. Anyway, it's a thought. But and then we'll have pizza. We'll have like breakfast boxes, and they have like a water park there too. So slides, if you guys like that kind of thing. But yeah, Yulkley is coming. So thank you for that $500, Yulkley. I'll give you an idea of where we're at for the total. For the next deadline, or like for the next segment, for the next goal. There we go. I got it out eventually. For the next goal, it is $1,450 to go. And that's to help pay off Brian's travel and Hannah's travel and Mike's travel. And then after that, we'll be looking into doing some audio-visual upgrades. So if you would like to help out with that, it's feedthebadger.com/events. And consider coming if you're in Calgary, but you have to RSVP at badger@feedthebadger.com. It's all on at feedthebadger.com/events. I want to start building up the momentum again because it'd be nice to actually go to a full convention. I got booted out of Calgary in 2015. I got booted out of the entirety of the US in like 2019 when we put on the ICMI 2019. So I couldn't even actually go to that convention. So maybe 3 times the charm in a few years, we'll be able to put on a convention in Calgary and I'll actually be able to attend the full thing. That would be awesome. So if you want to put some funds towards building up the momentum for that, feedthebadger.com/events. And again, thank you to Yilklee and everybody else who's helped us out. And I'll do one last poke of the voles to make sure there's nobody in the background trying to send us a super chow. Did you want to add anything to that, Brian?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I got to go pick up Lindsay, so I'm trying to get through this.
All right. Okay. We're done. If after the show you want to send us a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and I'll hand it back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you all in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.